Top 99 Niccolo Machiavelli quotes. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Make mistakes of ambition and not mistakes of sloth. Develop the strength to do bold things, not to suffer. Before all else, be armed. Entrepreneurs are simply those who understand that there is little difference between obstacle and opportunity, and are able to turn both to their advantage. Make no small plans, for they have no power to stir the soul. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Politics have no relation to morals. Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. There is no avoiding war, it can only be postponed to the advantage of others. Never was anything great achieved without danger. It is much safer for the prince to be feared than loved, but he ought to avoid making himself hated. It is just as difficult and dangerous to try to free a people that wants to remain servile, as it is to enslave a people that wants to remain free. Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are. A sign of intelligence is an awareness of one's own ignorance. Impetuosity and audacity often achieve what ordinary means fail to achieve. Wisdom consists of knowing how to distinguish the nature of trouble, and in choosing the lesser evil. Men should be either treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, for heavy ones they cannot. No enterprise is more likely to succeed than one concealed from the enemy until it is ripe for execution. I'm not interested in preserving the status quo, I want to overthrow it. There is nothing as likely to succeed as what the enemy believes you cannot attempt. Power is the pivot on which everything hinges. He who has the power is always right, the weaker is always wrong. Always assume incompetence before looking for conspiracy. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. One must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. Never do your enemy a minor injury. So far as he is able, a prince should stick to the path of good, but, if the necessity arises, he should know how to follow evil. He who builds on the people, builds on the mud. It must be considered that there is nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle, than to initiate a new order of things. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. How we live is so different from how we ought to live that he who studies what ought to be done rather than what is done will learn the way to his downfall rather than to his preservation. There is nothing more important than appearing to be religious. Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. People should either be caressed or crushed. If you do them minor damage, they will get their revenge, but if you cripple them, there is nothing they can do. If you need to injure someone, do it in such a way that you do not have to fear their vengeance. Men are always wicked at bottom unless they are made good by some compulsion. There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you. A prince never lacks legitimate reasons to break his promise. One must consider the final result. There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success, than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. War should be the only study of a prince. He should consider peace only as a breathing time which gives him leisure to contrive and furnishes as ability to execute military plans. The more sand has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it. A wise ruler should rely on what is under his own control, not on what is under the control of others. One should never risk one's whole fortune unless supported by one's entire forces. There are three kinds of brains. The one understands things unassisted, the other understands things when shown by others. The third understands neither alone nor with the explanations of others. There is nothing so difficult or so dangerous as to undertake to change the order of things. The leader should know how to enter into evil when necessity commands. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Wise men say, and not without reason, that whosoever wished to foresee the future might consult the past. The sinews of war are not gold, but good soldiers, for gold alone will not procure good soldiers, but good soldiers will always procure gold. To understand the nature of the people one must be a prince, and to understand the nature of the prince, one must be of the people. For the great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances as though they were realities, and are often more influenced by the things that seem than by those that are. He who, blinded by ambition, raises himself to a position whence he cannot mount higher, must thereafter fall with the greatest loss. Hatred is gained as much by good works as by evil. One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise that the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not. Forgiveness proceeds from a generous soul. A prince is also esteemed when he is a true friend and a true enemy. It has always been the opinion and judgment of wise men that nothing can be so uncertain as fame or power not founded on its own strength. Hence it comes about that all armed prophets have been victorious, and all unarmed prophets have been destroyed. War brings out thieves and peace hangs them. There is no surer sign of decay in a country than to see the rights of religion held in contempt. A battle that you win cancels any other bad action of yours. In the same way, by losing one, all the good things worked by you before become vain. The unarmed man is not just defenseless, he is also contemptible. Whoever desires to found a state and give it laws, must start with assuming that all men are bad and ever ready to display their vicious nature, whenever they may find occasion for it. A prince need trouble little about conspiracies when the people are well disposed, but when they are hostile and hold him in hatred, then he must fear everything and everybody. One change always leaves the way open for the establishment of others. One should never permit a disorder to persist in order to avoid a war, for wars cannot be avoided and can only be deferred to the advantage of others. For a long time I have not said what I believed, nor do I ever believe what I say, and if indeed sometimes I do happen to tell the truth, I hide it among so many lies that it is hard to find. Violence must be inflicted once for all, people will then forget what it tastes like and so be less resentful. Benefits must be conferred gradually, and in that way they will taste better. Thus it is well to seem merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, religious, and also to be so, but you must have the mind so disposed that when it is needful to be otherwise you may be able to change to the opposite qualities. A wise ruler ought never to keep faith when by doing so it would be against his interests. Therefore it is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities I have enumerated, but it is very necessary to appear to have them. I hope, and hoping feeds my pain I weep, and weeping feeds my failing heart I laugh, but the laughter does not pass within I burn, but the burning makes no mark outside. Is it better to be loved or feared? Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. He who is the cause of another's advancement is thereby the cause of his own ruin. Good order makes men bold, and confusion, cowards. He who becomes a prince through the favor of the people should always keep on good terms with them, which it is easy for him to do, since all they ask is not to be oppressed. The fact is that a man who wants to act virtuously in every way necessarily comes to grief among so many who are not virtuous. Therefore the best fortress is to be found in the love of the people, for although you may have fortresses they will not save you if you are hated by the people. Only those means of security are good, are certain, are lasting, that depend on yourself and your own vigor. For as laws are necessary that good manners be preserved, so there is need of good manners that law may be maintained. It is a common failing of man not to take account of tempests during fair weather. The chief foundations of all states, new as well as old or composite, are good laws and good arms. With difficulty he is beaten who can estimate his own forces and those of his enemy. By the delusions of seeming good the people are often misled to desire their own ruin, and they are frequently influenced by great hopes and brave promises. A son can bear with equanimity the loss of his father, but the loss of his inheritance may drive him to despair. The vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances, and the world consists chiefly of the vulgar. Every little advantage is of great moment when men have to come to blows. All the states and governments by which men are or ever have been ruled, have been and are either republics or princedoms. In conclusion, the arms of others either fall from your back, or they weigh you down, or they bind you fast. Among other evils which being unarmed brings you, it causes you to be despised. Although deceit is detestable in all other things, yet in the conduct of war it is laudable and honorable, and a commander who vanquishes an enemy by stratagem is equally praised with one who gains victory by force.